I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. I'm here today with Gordon Lawson, CEO at Conceal, provider of an intelligence-grade zero-trust technology that protects global companies of all sizes from malware and ransomware. To learn more about our sponsor, Conceal, visit conceal.io. Also joining us is Ron Gula, president and co-founder at Gula Tech Adventures. Gordon, Ron, welcome. Thank you both for joining us today.
Very happy to be here. How's it going?
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
So Gordon, Conceal's guests have been a who's who in cybersecurity. It's always exciting to find out who the next guest is going to be. Today we have a distinguished leader in cyber, Ron Gula. Tell us a little about Ron and how you met him and his relationship with Conceal now.
Well, we're just so lucky to meet Ron through some mutual connections. His background as just an absolute visionary in the cyberspace, the co-founder of Tenable, and what he's done with the community now with Gula Tech and investing in some amazing companies. You know, we're very fortunate to count him as an investor and as an advisor, and I think really helping to take Conceal and our technology to the next level in the community.
So Ron, you and your firm Gula Tech Adventures have an excellent reputation. So many people have followed you and know your background, so you don't really need much of an introduction. I have to ask, how did Gordon and Conceal get on your radar screen, and ultimately what compelled you to invest?
Well, we always look for companies with, we'll just say, influence or ideas that came out of the government, the defense industry, the intelligence community. And some of the work that Conceal was doing there, once we started investigating the opportunity, we really felt comfortable with the team and the tech. And, you know, Conceal today, without kind of going into, you know, secret sauce of the future and whatnot, there's a whole new revolution in trying to control what you can do as an enterprise to protect the browsers as you're browsing on the internet. It's one of the major forces of attacking, and it's one of the reasons we're really excited to be involved with Conceal.
So Gordon, to kick off, if you had to explain what is good security, because I hesitate to say that there's any such thing as great security when, you know, we look at the number of cyber attacks and data breaches that are affecting companies globally, what would good security be?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Steve. The one thing I just want to say is that this is a really, really challenging problem right now, and I think a lot of it, you know, you have nation states that have really weaponized cyber. You have NATO countries that are under attack. The government of Costa Rica has been offline for months. So, and that's just on the nation state level. Then, of course, you know, the increasing levels of ransomware and attacks that are going on that vector as well. So this is a really, really challenging problem. I think there's a couple fundamental things. I think that it is super important to protect users in an enterprise. I think that we know that users are probably going to do unwise things in the course of their work just because there's so many opportunities. As Ron said, a lot of that is browser-based, but we need to give them some preventative insurance policies so that when those events happen, it is not catastrophic to that enterprise or to their network. And so that's what we're really focused on is how can we help to shore up these networks? How can we give security practitioners good telemetry on what's going on what's making it through their current perimeter defenses? And I think all of those things are just important pieces of hygiene that really need to be focused on.
So Ron, on the Gula.tech site, you have a lot of great content there. We have a lot of CISOs and security leaders who are watching, so I encourage you to go there, and we're going to talk about some other material. Let me ask you about a recent piece I watched on vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, and the practice of finding malicious implants. You say those are all parts of good security. Maybe you could break it down and give us a shorter version here for the CISOs and security leaders who are watching.
Yeah, so a lot of what we do from an investment point of view is to invest in maybe one or two different types of mousetraps that kind of solve the same problem. Having been the CEO and co-founder of Tenable, I'm not looking to invest in another, you know, vulnerability management company, but Tenable basically answers the question of how exposed you are from cyber hygiene, what vulnerability, how good your program is doing. Another way to look at that problem is to actually just test how well you are as an organization at detecting implants, detecting malware, and seeing how well you can repel it. Dmitry Perovich kind of coined the 1-10-60, that you should have a 1 minute to identify in an automated fashion if you have an attacker, 10 minutes to figure it out, and 60 minutes to kind of repel it. Well, if that's your measure of security, why not test that more often with breach simulation software? That's that video in 1 minute right there.
So, Gordon, we typically talk to each other about large enterprises, so Fortune 500, Global 2000. We talk about mid-market companies. Would you say generally that these companies have good security? And I'd ask the same thing about government organizations, who we also spend a lot of time talking about each other. Are we in a good state?
I think that it certainly depends on the organization, Steve. Not every Fortune 500 or Global 2000 is the same. If you're a financial services firm and you're a high margin business, you're going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in your cyber posture. And one of the things we see, if you're a manufacturing business and it's a little low margin, it may not be as much of a priority. Now, I think that all companies of those sizes know at the board level that there needs to be strong investments. And the same thing with government, of course, right? There needs to be a lot of investment here in order to really implement, I think, this zero trust approach and make sure users are protected, make sure your network is protected. But I think the one thing that I also think is important to point out, and we see this with larger companies, is larger companies are an aircraft carrier. They can't turn as quickly as, let's say, maybe a sub 5,000 employee organization. And so making lots of changes across that security stack comes with trade-offs, comes with the difficulty of implementation. And so that's one of the things that we see. I would say in general, I think a lot of these companies are definitely making investments. They understand the priorities that they need to do to make sure their posture is strong. But the threat actors are evolving their vectors very quickly, and it's something that you just simply can't get complacent about.
So, Ron, what do you say? Do we have good security across these large enterprises? And maybe you could also touch on smaller companies where there's great concern.
We don't have a consistent way as the cybersecurity industry of deciding what good is. It's a very personal decision. As Gordon said, boards they need to make an investment, but they also need to make a risk decision of what they want to protect and what risk they want to assume. Cyber Readiness Institute says, look, good passwords, don't use USBs, be aware of phishing, and patch your systems. If we all did that, we'd be better off. But then, the hackers just escalate and they move on to maybe getting more 0 days, maybe, doing supply chain attacks and that kind of thing. I'm happy with the progress that the nation's making. We have a national cyber director. We've got, DHS is a lot more active, being the point to centralize communicate. But we have a long way to go as a nation. Most people don't really understand their role in cybersecurity, which is why I like to talk about it in terms of data care, make it a lot more personal and not some sort of technology that's somebody else's problem. So until we get that all out there, I think we're going to be playing this catch-up game for at least the next decade or so.
So I want to pause here and ask a personal question. Gordon, this is for you. Tell me, what is your favorite cybersecurity or hacker movie? And this is a little bit of a setup because I already know, but the people who are watching us don't. But give it to us.
Right. I loved War Games. I think I was pretty young when it came out, and the joy for me was watching this a couple years ago with my then 13-year-old son. The technology is so dated. Obviously, the Cold War implications and what it really was the first movie where an industrial control system was hacked at the national security level and could have caused nuclear war. So being able to show him the geopolitics of that time, but also just how much computers and cyber have evolved in 30 years was really cool as well. But that was definitely one of my favorites growing up.
So the reason I asked the question is because one of the challenges we have in our industry, as you both know, is a lack of cyber workers, and we're trying to reach more young people. We're trying to create more of a pipeline. Ron, you've published some great material on your site. One of them had to do with Star Trek and hacks, and I loved it. I watched it twice. We published a book recently. Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, wrote the foreword, which was a great treat. It's a hacker's movie guide. We go back to the 1950s up through present and profile about 200 or so cybersecurity and hacker movies, but I don't know that it stands up to what you put out. So tell us about those top 5 Star Trek hacks, because I loved it. And I think CISOs and security leaders would have a fun time with it, but we have a lot of young people and parents who tune into us.
Yeah, so at Gula.tech, we put out a lot of different videos on different types of topics, cyber policy, some humor, whatnot. So the top 5 Star Trek hacks, it was my own personal list. There's a lot of different Star Treks these days if you're not keeping score. The Discovery show on Paramount, they actually had an episode where they encountered a satellite that was doing sequel attacks. There's a whole bunch of other different attacks that occur throughout the seasons. One I like to talk about is like the logic attacks, the classic Captain Kirk almost coming up with a Spock sort of way to kind of trick a computer into turning himself off and whatnot. But the number one hack is the best Star Trek movie ever, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. Khan has seized control of the Reliant. He's coming around, he's whooping on the Enterprise. And from the Enterprise's command console, they actually connect to the Reliant's command console and they turn off the shields. And I just think that's such a good example of trust and system settings and even basic password management. There's a lot we can learn from these episodes.
So not to put you on the spot or anything, Ron, but we have a lot of followers. Can we have you come back on and talk some more about Star Trek and hacks?
We can talk Star Trek, and we can actually talk a lot of 60s and 70s movies. There's movies like The Forbin Project, 7 Days in May, just amazing movies where they talk about how to hack into like nuclear weapons and AI and stuff like that. So very, very rich field to talk about.
All right. Well, great. We'll definitely be bringing you back on with us. So Gordon, to get serious here, we really are in the midst of a labor crunch. There's a lot of statistics out there. I don't need to share them. I think most people who are watching us have a pretty good grasp on that. We need more young people in our field. Over the past 5 years, we've seen hundreds of colleges and universities here in our country, and this is true globally, introducing more and more cyber coursework in computer science programs and cybersecurity degrees. Are we seeing more of a pipeline? Is the pipeline getting better? College graduates who are potentially coming into our field?
I think the pipeline's definitely getting better, Steve. I mean, I saw a stat this morning, and I know it's not the U.S., but there's I think a 60,000 person need in Australia right now. And I think I go back to, why Australia? Well, they have a nation state that's in their part of the world that's causing a lot of havoc, right? And so I think that we're in a period right now where it's important for the United States and its Five Eyes and NATO allies to continue to staff up, to let young people know that this is an amazing career path, to not just get them theory, but to really get them hands-on training as well, and to really help create that next generation of red and blue teamers that can help us defend against these threats. So it's getting better, but we got a lot of work to do.
So Ron, maybe you can chime in not only on young people. You've been in the industry for quite a while. Are we making progress there? Are we getting more women into the field? Are we getting more representation from minorities in the field? Are we seeing more IT workers crossing over? Is the pipeline starting to grow?
Yeah, there's a number of different issues which kind of keeps the workforce smaller than it should be and also not as diverse as it should be. One is that our industry is so young. If you look at aviation, legal, healthcare, whatnot, I mean, these have been around for a long time. Everybody knows somebody who has a parent or a friend who's in that business. But to say like 10 years ago what it was to work in cyber for a healthcare company or the government is really different now. So it's hard to have that pipeline. The other thing is that our industry is called the cybersecurity industry, which implies there's a cyber industry, but I don't really hear a whole lot of people in IT saying that they're in cyber, which really does create this barrier to entry. Like, how do I get into this? If I'm in IT, am I in cybersecurity? Once again, I said it before, but we're pushing data care, kind of solves a number of these problems. It also embraces IT as part of the entire ecosystem. This is exactly what the healthcare industry did when they embraced everybody. The insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry, they're all part of the healthcare industry. and they're not something that's distinct. So the more we can talk about that, the more we can get more people and focus on increasing diversity.
Right. Well, in our last report, we said every IT worker is a cyber worker. I don't know that resonated with enough people, but that's definitely where we need to go. So to wrap up here, maybe both of you can just offer some last comments on good security and maybe even great security.
I want Ron to have the last word here, but I just want to say, I think one thing that this is a network, the cybersecurity community. Not one company has the answer to everything, and I think this, just from our side, this is why it's so important to have folks like Ron as an investor and as part of the Conceal family. Is it helps us get better. It helps us we've already identified some, I think, great integrations together with some of those other companies. It helps us to be better prepared to defend against these threats and how quickly they're evolving. And I just encourage, I think that anyone in the space right now, you have to have an open mind and really be always open to learning, because it is changing very, very quickly. And at the end of the day, cyber moves at the speed of light, and we in industry have to move at the speed of light too, to be able to keep up with the threat.
So Ron, last word.
Yeah, for the general public, I like to remind everybody in the cyber industry that they are representatives of our industry. So they should not be bashful about talking about cyber hygiene, about trying to encourage people to come into this career field, and even calling people out when they're not patching their browsers or turning off their phone at a theater so it can reboot and things like that. And we have to be a much more engaging with the whole of society and that. And of course, Gordon, I am thrilled to be involved with Conceal. There's great things coming. I believe the work your guys are doing is going to be at the forefront of zero trust, and I'm very much looking forward to helping that vision come to reality.
Well, Gordon, Ron, appreciate both of you coming on with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. This interview is sponsored by Conceal, provider of an intelligence-grade zero-trust technology that protects global companies of all sizes from malware and ransomware. To learn more, visit conceal.io. You can keep up with all of our media at cybercrimemagazine.com.